There is a version of financial advice that you have heard 1,000 times. It is the version that tells you to stop buying coffee, to pack your lunch every day, to cancel every subscription and never eat at a restaurant and turn your thermostat down until you are uncomfortable in your own home. It is the version that treats every small pleasure as a betrayal of your future self, that frames saving as a series of daily sacrifices, that makes financial progress feel like punishment for the crime of having ever enjoyed anything. And if you're like most people, you have tried this version. Maybe for a month, maybe for a week, maybe for 3 days before the deprivation became unbearable and you swung back to your old habits, feeling worse than before because now you had failed at the thing you were supposed to be able to do. Here is what nobody tells you about that approach. It does not work. Not because you are weak, not because you lack discipline. It does not work because it is designed wrong. It fights against human psychology instead of working with it. It relies on willpower, which is a finite and unreliable resource. It makes saving feel like losing, which guarantees that you will eventually stop. The financial advice industry has been selling you a model that fails by design and then blaming you when it fails. But there is another way. A way to keep more of your money without making your life smaller. A way to build wealth without feeling like you are constantly denying yourself. A way that works with your brain instead of against it, that creates systems instead of relying on motivation, that produces results without requiring you to become someone you are not. This is not about extreme frugality. It is not about cutting everything that brings you joy. It is about understanding how money actually works in your life, and then restructuring that flow so that more of it stays with you without you having to think about it every day. Let me start with something that will probably surprise you. Most people have no idea how much they actually spend. Not approximately, not within a reasonable range. They are off by 25 to 40%. This is not an exaggeration. Studies consistently show that when people estimate their monthly spending, they dramatically underestimate the real number. They forget the small purchases. They round down on the medium ones. They mentally exclude the irregular expenses that somehow happen every month anyway. And this gap between perception and reality is where most financial problems actually live. I want to introduce you to a framework that will change how you think about this. It is called the Think, Want, Do gap, and it has 3 components. First, there is what you think you spend. This is the number in your head, the rough estimate you would give if someone asked you right now how much money leaves your account each month. Second, there is what you want to spend, the amount that would feel appropriate given your income and your goals, the number that represents your intentions. Third, there is what you actually spend, the real number, documented in bank statements and credit card bills, undeniable and often uncomfortable. For most people, these 3 numbers are wildly different. They think they spend $3,000 a month. They want to spend $2,500. They actually spend $4,000. And the gap between what they think and what they actually do is invisible to them, which means they cannot possibly close it. They are trying to fix a problem they cannot see. They are making budgets based on fictional numbers. They are wondering why they never seem to get ahead when the answer is staring at them from their bank statement, unread and unexamined. This is why awareness must come before optimization. You cannot improve what you do not see. The first step toward keeping more of your money is not cutting expenses or increasing income or implementing some clever system. The first step is simply looking. Actually looking. Pulling up your statements from the last 3 months and adding up what you spent, category by category, without flinching, without justifying, without the comfortable vagueness that protects you from uncomfortable truths. Most people resist this step because they already suspect the answer will be bad, and they are right. It probably will be. But here is what happens when you finally look. You create a feedback loop that improves your instincts over time. The reason your estimates are so wrong is that you have never calibrated them against reality. Your brain has been guessing, and guesses without feedback never improve. But once you see what you actually spend, once you confront the real number, your future estimates become more accurate. Your financial instincts sharpen. You start noticing things you never noticed before, not because you are trying harder, but because your brain has been given the information it needs to learn. This is not about guilt. This is not about shame. This is about clarity. And clarity, it turns out, often does most of the work by itself. Many people who simply start tracking their spending without any intention to change find that their spending naturally decreases. The act of observation alters the behavior. When you know you will see the number at the end of the month, you think twice before the unnecessary purchase. When you are aware that the coffee adds up, you do not need to ban yourself from coffee. You just become more conscious about when you actually want it versus when you are buying it out of habit. Awareness creates a natural friction that willpower could never sustain. But awareness alone, while powerful, is not enough. Because here is the uncomfortable truth about human motivation. It is unreliable. You can understand exactly what you should do, you can see clearly what you're doing wrong, and you can still fail to change because motivation fluctuates, because willpower depletes, because the best of intentions collapse under the weight of a bad day or a stressful week or simple exhaustion. The financial advice that tells you to just try harder, to be more disciplined, to want it more, is advice that ignores everything we know about how human beings actually function. What works instead is systems. Systems that do not require you to make good decisions because the decisions are made for you. Systems that work whether you're motivated or not, whether you're paying attention or not, whether you're having your best day or your worst. The most reliable way to save money is to never see it in the first place. If the money moves from your paycheck to your savings before it hits your checking account, you do not have to decide to save it. You do not have to resist spending it. It is simply gone, allocated to your future, removed from the temptation of your present. This is what automation does. It removes decision fatigue, it eliminates emotional resistance, it creates consistency that willpower could never match. And it does something else that is almost magical. It turns saving from an active sacrifice into a passive background process. You do not feel like you are giving something up because you never had it in the first place. Your lifestyle adjusts to what remains, your brain forgets the money exists, and at the end of the year, you discover that you have saved more than you ever managed to save when you were trying to save. Because trying involves decisions, and decisions can go wrong. The tools for this automation are everywhere now. Apps that round up purchases and invest the difference. Banks that let you schedule automatic transfers. Services that analyze your spending and move safe amounts to savings without you thinking about it. These are not gimmicks. These are force multipliers that work with human psychology instead of against it. They transform saving from something you do into something that happens. And the less you think about saving, counterintuitively, the more effective it becomes. But I want to address something that stops many people from even starting. Something that creates a paralysis that looks like laziness, but is actually something more specific: goal overwhelm. When you think about financial goals, you probably think in big numbers. Save $100,000, pay off $50,000 in debt, accumulate enough to retire. These numbers are so large, so abstract, so distant from your current reality that your brain essentially gives up before it starts. The goal does not feel achievable. It does not feel connected to anything you can actually do today. So you do nothing. Not because you do not care, but because the number is too big for your brain to process as actionable. The solution is not to lower the goal. The solution is to shrink the time frame. $100,000 is overwhelming. Saving $11 a day is manageable. They are the same thing over 25 years, but they feel completely different. Your brain can imagine $11. It can visualize it. It can connect it to specific actions you could take today. The daily number makes the annual number real in a way that the annual number alone never could. This is not just psychological trickery. This is how motivation actually works. Progress feels real only when the brain can visualize it. Small, frequent wins create momentum that big, distant goals cannot. The person who saves $11 a day and celebrates that daily win will almost certainly outperform the person who vaguely intends to save a lot someday. Not because the first person wants it more, because the first person has structured the goal in a way that their brain can actually engage with. And here is another principle that most people get backwards. If you have high interest debt, you should probably pay that off before you focus on saving. This sounds counterintuitive. Saving feels productive. Debt repayment feels like treading water. But the math is unforgiving. If you have credit card debt at 20% interest and a savings account earning 2%, every dollar you save while carrying that debt is effectively losing you 18%. You are filling a bucket that has a hole in the bottom. The water is draining out faster than you can pour it in. Paying off high-interest debt first is not giving up on saving. It is saving in the most effective way possible. Every dollar that reduces your debt is a dollar that is no longer being charged interest. The return on paying off a 20% debt is a guaranteed 20%. which is better than any investment you are likely to find. And once the debt is gone, the cash flow that was going to interest payments can be redirected to savings, accelerating your progress dramatically. This is what I mean when I say elimination beats accumulation. Before you focus on building, focus on closing the leaks. Before you optimize for growth, stop the bleeding. The debt is not just a number on a statement. It is an active force working against you, compounding in the wrong direction, making every other financial goal harder to achieve. Eliminating it is not a detour from your financial progress. It is the most direct path to it. But what about the actual spending reductions that free up this money in the first place? Here is where we return to the theme we started with. You do not have to give up your life to keep more of your money. The easiest savings, the ones that feel like almost nothing, come from discretionary spending that you barely notice or enjoy. The subscription you forgot you had, the delivery fees that add up to hundreds a year, the convenience purchases that cost twice what the same item would cost if you planned slightly ahead. None of these things are improving your life in any meaningful way. Eliminating them costs you nothing, except the effort of noticing they exist. Start where resistance is lowest. Do not begin by cutting the things you love. Begin by cutting the things you do not even remember buying. The unused gym membership, the streaming service you have not watched in months, the premium version of an app when the free version does everything you need. These cuts do not make your life smaller. They make your financial life leaner while leaving your actual life untouched. And here is something that most people never consider. You can often get exactly what you already have for significantly less money. Not by giving something up, but by switching who you buy it from. Your car insurance company knows you're unlikely to shop around, so they raise your rates gradually, counting on your inertia. Your phone plan includes features you do not use at prices higher than competitors charge for the same service. Your internet provider quotes you a rate that is negotiable if you simply call and ask. One phone call, one afternoon of comparison shopping, can save you hundreds of dollars a year without changing anything about what you receive. This is optimization without lifestyle change. You're not sacrificing. You're not depriving yourself. You're simply paying less for identical value. The money you save this way is the easiest money you will ever save because it requires no ongoing discipline. You make one decision, you take one action, and the savings compound month after month without further effort. This is the opposite of the coffee-cutting advice. This is one phone call, not daily suffering. But I want to be honest with you about something, because the frugality-focused financial advice often ignores it. There is a limit to how much you can save. No matter how optimized your spending, no matter how disciplined your systems, you cannot save more than you earn. And for many people, the real problem is not spending too much, it is earning too little. You can squeeze and optimize and automate, but if the income is not there, you will eventually hit a ceiling that no amount of saving advice can lift. This is where income becomes as important as spending. And the uncomfortable truth is that most people are underpaid relative to the market, and most people never do anything about it. They wait for raises that do not come. They assume their salary is fixed. They treat job switching as a last resort rather than a compensation strategy. And every year they do not act. They fall further behind where they could be. Asking for a raise is uncomfortable. Interviewing for new jobs is stressful. Negotiating feels confrontational. But these are the highest return on time activities available to you financially. A successful negotiation can increase your income by thousands of dollars per year, every year, for the rest of your career. That compounds. A few awkward conversations in your 30s can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars by retirement. And yet most people will spend hours researching how to save $50 on groceries while never spending 30 minutes researching their market value. Now, I want to acknowledge something important, because not everyone should optimize purely for income. There are valid reasons to stay in a job that pays less than you could earn elsewhere. Maybe the work is meaningful. Maybe the flexibility matters. Maybe the stress level is manageable in a way that higher paying alternatives would not be. These are real considerations. Money is not the only variable, and pretending otherwise is its own kind of financial advice blindness. But the trade-off should be conscious. You should know what you're choosing and what you're giving up. If you stay in a lower paying job for quality of life reasons, that is a legitimate choice. If you stay because you have not bothered to explore alternatives, because you assume the grass is not greener, because the inertia of staying is easier than the effort of exploring, that is not a choice. That is default. And defaults are expensive. The point is not that everyone should maximize income at all costs. The point is that you have more control over your income than you probably realize. You can ask for more. You can look elsewhere. You can develop skills that command higher rates. You can position yourself for opportunities that do not currently exist for you. None of this is guaranteed, but all of it is possible. And the person who believes their income is fixed, who treats their salary as an immutable fact of life rather than a variable to be influenced, is leaving money on the table that did not have to stay there. And this brings us to the deepest theme underlying everything we have discussed: personal agency. You are not trapped. It might feel that way sometimes. It might feel like the bills are fixed and the income is stuck and the math does not work no matter how you rearrange it. But you have levers, you have options, you have more control than the feeling of financial pressure allows you to see. You have the lever of awareness, the ability to see clearly what is actually happening with your money instead of guessing. You have the lever of automation, the ability to create systems that work whether you're motivated or not. You have the lever of debt elimination, the ability to stop the bleeding before you focus on building. You have the lever of negotiation, the ability to get better prices on what you already buy and better compensation for what you already do. You have the lever of job mobility, the ability to reset your market value instead of waiting for internal recognition that may never come. Financial progress is not random. It is not about luck or timing or circumstances beyond your control. Those things matter, but they matter less than the actions you take consistently over time. The person who deploys all of these levers, who becomes aware and automates and eliminates debt and negotiates and explores options, will end up in a dramatically different position than the person who does none of them, regardless of starting circumstances. Not because the first person is luckier, because they made different choices repeatedly over years. This is the shift from reactive to proactive. Most people react to their financial situation. They check their balance and feel good or bad depending on what they see. They pay the bills as they come. They spend what seems available and hope it works out. This is not a strategy. This is financial drifting. And drifting over decades leads somewhere you did not choose and probably do not want. The alternative is structuring. Deciding in advance how money will flow. Setting up systems that execute your intentions without requiring daily decisions. Creating a framework where good behavior is automatic and bad behavior requires active effort. This is not about control in a rigid, joyless sense. This is about designing your financial life so that it produces the outcomes you want without requiring you to fight against yourself every day. And here is what happens when you make this shift. Money stops being a source of anxiety and starts being a tool. The background hum of financial stress that most people carry without even noticing it begins to quiet. The decisions that used to feel fraught become simpler because the system handles them. The future that used to feel threatening starts to feel possible, not because your circumstances changed dramatically, but because your relationship with money changed. You stopped reacting and started structuring. You stopped hoping and started engineering. I want to be clear that this is not a transformation that happens overnight. The awareness takes time to develop. The automation takes time to set up. The debt takes time to pay off. The income takes time to increase. None of this is instant, but all of it is cumulative. Every month that you're more aware than last month, your instincts improve. Every month that automation runs, your savings grow. Every month that you pay down debt, your cash flow opens up. Every month that you develop skills, your earning potential increases. The direction matters more than the speed, because the direction compounds. And here is the final truth, the one that connects everything. You can keep more of your money without giving up your life, because the things that drain your money and the things that enrich your life are usually not the same things. The biggest financial leaks are often invisible. The subscriptions you forgot, the fees you did not notice, the loyalty taxes you pay for not shopping around, the interest on debt you could have avoided, the income you did not earn because you did not ask or explore. Plugging these leaks does not diminish your life. It does not require sacrifice or deprivation or daily willpower battles. It requires systems, awareness, and occasional action. The things that actually enrich your life, the relationships, the experiences, the projects that give you meaning, rarely cost as much as you think, and certainly cost less than the invisible leaks drain. The person who spends consciously on what they love while eliminating waste lives better and wealthier than the person who spends unconsciously on everything and constantly feels poor. This is not austerity. This is clarity. And clarity, combined with good systems, produces results that feel almost effortless because the effort is front-loaded into design rather than continuously required in execution. So let me bring this together in practical terms. First, look at your spending. Actually look. Create the feedback loop that makes your instincts more accurate over time. Second, automate your saving so that it happens before you can interfere. Third, break your goals into timeframes your brain can engage with. Fourth, pay off high-interest debt before you focus on building. Fifth, start cutting where it costs you nothing: the waste, the forgotten, the unused. Sixth, optimize what remains. Negotiate, compare, switch providers, get the same value for less money. Seventh, consider your income as a variable, not a fixed fact. Eighth, understand that all of this is within your control, that financial progress is not luck but accumulated choices. None of this requires you to become someone you are not. None of this requires giving up the things that make your life worth living. None of this requires willpower you do not have, or discipline you cannot sustain. It requires understanding how money actually works in your life, and then restructuring the flows so that more of it stays with you. It requires working with your psychology instead of against it. It requires systems instead of suffering. The financial advice industry has profited for decades by making you feel bad about your spending and then selling you solutions that do not work. They tell you to cut the coffee and pack the lunch and suffer today for tomorrow's reward, and when you cannot sustain it, they blame you for lacking discipline. But the failure was never yours. The model was wrong. You were given advice designed for robots, not humans. You were told to fight your nature instead of design around it. You do not have to fight your nature. You have to understand it and build systems that accommodate it. The coffee is not the problem. The lack of awareness is the problem. The willpower is not the solution. Automation is the solution. The income is not fixed. The income is negotiable. The goal is not unreachable. The time frame is wrong. Money is not something that happens to you. It is something you can learn to direct, not through suffering, not through deprivation, through clarity, systems, and the occasional uncomfortable conversation. The people who build wealth are not monks. They are engineers. They have designed their financial lives to produce certain outcomes, and those designs run whether they are motivated or not. You can design your financial life too. You can create systems that work. You can keep more of your money without making your life smaller. You can build wealth without the constant feeling of sacrifice. You can have both the present you want to live and the future you need to prepare for. The choice is yours.